Hey guys, this is Red and Blue, your channel on YouTube for all things PSG in English. Please subscribe. Today, let's do something fun. Let's talk about why Spanish media in general shouldn't be listened to. And you guys are much better off listening to me instead when it comes to PSG stuff. I want to go back to something I mentioned, I think, a week or so ago, which is like this ongoing rumors that seems to exist in the Spanish/Real Madrid media that apparently Vitinha is going to join Real Madrid probably next summer because he's got some sort of release clause in his contract. So I'll say this first and I'll say this up front, and you can, just like skip the rest of this video. But remember this, if you're a Spanish fan, there's no release clauses in France. It doesn't exist. It's illegal. It's actually like illegal. So yeah, fake news. And like, let me take you through like the story of how this got started. Because it's quite funny and like it actually says a lot about like the way the media works and the way like football world works in general. So the way it started was in an article from Spanish media called Defensa Central. Defensa Central, it's well known for aggregating all sorts of mercato news and football news, but not being a very solid media, to say the least. So it's a lot of baseless rumors and baseless claims and so on, just made to generate clicks and generate traffic and generate comments. Sadly, there's a lot of media like this in the football world. Defensa Central, it's well known in the Spanish world. It's kind of funny and like it's one of those media where like it's pretty well known as well. So like when you see a rumor sourced by Defensa Central, you know that it's not real. But yeah, anyway, the way it started was in Defensa Central. Around the moment of the Champions League final in Munich, they did an article looking at which midfielders should Real Madrid be looking at to replace Toni Kroos, which has been one of their issues last season. And in that article, they listed a few possibilities, including one which was Vitinha. And they were saying that, and that's the part that really wasn't sourced and never got confirmed, that Real had reached out to Vitinha's agent, who had told Real Madrid that it would take 130 million euros, and that the player, Vitinha, would have to request to PSG his transfer to Real Madrid. So like I said, like that was never confirmed by anyone, not only like the player, his agent or anything, but even like other Spanish media, other like pro-Real Madrid media, never confirms that any sort of conversation like this had taken place. And I'm not even talking about the number, which is like, apparently pure creation. But yeah, as a result, like there were a couple of others, like subsequent articles in the early days of the mercato. Same kind of thing. Who should Real Madrid be looking at? Who would be a good fit for Real Madrid? And Vitinha's name comes up, which is normal because they've got a gap in central midfield. And Vitinha is basically what's been best in the world in the past season. So same thing with Rodri the season before, who's another one whose name regularly comes attached with Real Madrid. But so Vitinha was in those conversations. And in general, like, and that's the reality of it is that even Spanish media and even rumor mills like Defensa Central, they always said like, out of all of the options on the table, Vitinha is probably the least realistic of it all because, like, yeah, the player is doing well in Paris. The team is doing well in Paris. Paris is not inclined to sell to Real Madrid for obvious reason. And so the reality is that there's really like very, very little possibility of the player getting transferred to Real Madrid. Out of that, rumors started accelerating on X/Twitter, unsurprisingly. And that's where like some Spanish accounts started mentioning that Vitinha would have a release clause for 135 million, was the initial numbers they gave, this summer, which would come down to 90 million next summer. So yeah, it's Twitter, because once again, release clauses are not legal in France. Not only do they not exist, they are not legal in France. So yeah, and like when people pointed that out to those Twitter accounts and so on, what they said was that, oh yeah, but like look, Cherki, Ryan Cherki supposedly had such a clause at 22.5 million. Cherki got transferred to Man City for 40 million, guys. So like, get your, like, if you're making stuff up, like at least get your story straight, because like this is ridiculous. And from then on, the next one in line was Sport Bild in Germany, which is also, a tabloid level kind of media, well known for relaying like absurd rumors and so on. Who relayed the thing and talked about this, citing Defensa Central and AS as sources for this. And so, Defensa Central had done an article and they'd given the 130 million euro thing, but they never had a source for it in the first place. So you can cite them as a source. It doesn't make the report any more true to begin with. And so now we're in a world where apparently, like, even Marca recently is doing coverage saying like, oh yeah, Vitinha is going to come to Real Madrid because he's got a release clause in his contract, and like we can just do that. No, he does not. He still does not. This parallel reality that you guys have created, it's still parallel reality. It's still not the real one. So yeah. So anyway, they're still talking about it, which is kind of funny. They're talking about how like once in a blue moon in French football, like I said, like release clauses are illegal. So in the sense that in a professional footballer contract, you cannot have a release clause. In the contract that you homologate with the league and so on, you cannot have a release clause. So what has happened, like very, very, very rarely, and as far as I'm concerned, like not in the last 20 years in PSG, certainly like 100% certain, never with Qatar, is that you do a separate unrelated contract, which is just between the club and the player, where they like set this sort of clause, except like that has no legal value attached to it. So it's essentially like as good as a handshake or an oral agreement. So the last time it happened was actually like, and that's where like, it's so unusual and like really once in a blue moon. Last time it happened was Lassana Diarra when he went to Olympique Marseille. They signed a separate contract for this, not for a release clause, but for extra bonuses. Which then like the club refused to pay because the contract have no legal value. And so the player tried to complain with the league, and the league looked at it and went like, no, this has no legal value. So you're like, you've been made. Like the club doesn't have to pay you. It's not real. So once again, like, and the, I'll have to mention it. I know like Spanish fan knows this because like the situation happens to them. But the way a release clause works is that like you like literally deposit a check to the league. In France, the league doesn't recognize a release clause. So, like, what do you think happens when you show up at the door with your check? They'll go like, no, this is not real. Like, this doesn't exist here. So, yeah, like, funny one. And yeah, like, I'm sorry, Real fans. I know you think, like, you can just, like, do this sort of stuff. But, like, yeah, in this case, like, you need to stop reading Twitter basically because it's not real. So Vitinha, he signed actually a new contract pretty recently. He's tied with PSG until June 2029. So he has like literally 4 years remaining on his contract. He's being paid like nearly $1 million a month in PSG. So he's like among the top players in terms of salary in PSG. He's never indicated any sort of intention to leave. Not saying this might not be the case tomorrow. We don't know what could happen. Obviously, Real Madrid is a big club, but at this point, like I very much believe, and I think looking at recent results and even like recent games, he's much better off playing for PSG than he'd be playing for Real Madrid. And so Real fan, like just drop the fantasy because ultimately, like I said, like any sort of clause, it hasn't happened in PSG in like as long as for more than 20 years, for sure. I've been a fan since the mid 90s. I have like no memory of anything like this ever happening in PSG, but I'm not, maybe I'm missing stuff and I'm not remembering right. But yeah, and like we sure as hell didn't put one on Kylian Mbappe's contract, who literally negotiated everything as hard as he could and would have begged to have a clause like this somewhere, anywhere in his contract. We didn't put it for Neymar, who would have wanted it as well. We didn't put it for anyone. Even in the early days when player would come to PSG and really take a big bet on the club growing. So yeah, it's not real. It's just not real. So yeah, Vitinha will stay in PSG for now. I'm very happy. Like, you know, this at least this coming season, like we'll see his magic on the pitch again. That was like the fun transfer story, fun transfer rant of the day. But yeah. In other news, let me briefly talk because I want to touch on a few mercato stories that we have. First one, good news: Renato Sanches officially loaned to Panathinaikos. That got confirmed yesterday, so happy days. Not many details in the announcement though, which makes me cringe a little bit because it doesn't speak to how the wage will be paid. If you remember, like there were rumors that PSG might pay the wage if the player gets injured or doesn't play enough, and Panathinaikos will only pay him if he plays. So yeah, it might be ultimately like it might be a loan that we end up paying for, which is really not great. And moreover, like there's no inclusion, at least in the announcement, of anything about a buy clause. So it might be like just a loan, potentially with just a gentleman's agreement to revisit if the players does well. But yeah, in the announcement and in anything to do with this, there were no mention of any agreement in terms of an option to buy the player, which previously had been mentioned at 9 million euros. So hopefully, like that's somewhere in there, or at least like a gentleman's agreement that's been done. Next in line, Arnau Tenas. Interestingly, big conversation right now with Villareal, who finished 5th in the Liga last season, who's qualified for the Champions League, and who's looking at Tenas to make them their starting goalkeeper, which would be amazing for the player. And so right now, like the conversation with PSG is ongoing. PSG would prefer a straight-up transfer. In the past, they've put a price tag of 6 million euro on the player. Villarreal doesn't want to pay that much, obviously, so they're negotiating. We're even potentially looking at a loan, which would have a direct implication of us extending Tenas' contract because he's starting his last year of contract. So we would extend his contract, give him a raise, only to loan him to Villarreal for the season. So we'll see how this develops, but I think, you know, for us, he's in excess. We've got obviously Chevalier, we've got Safonov, who said he's going to stay. We've got Marine, who just joined to be our number 3. So, you know, if he can move and be like starting goalkeeper in a club playing the Champions League, Godspeed, good on you. Hopefully they can pay the fee, but yeah, like it sounds like a good deal. In the past, Girona and Celta Vigo were also mentioned for Tenas, but nothing really new about those. Staying with the goalkeepers, the other one, the big dude, Donnarumma, who got his goodbyes to Parc des Princes this weekend. We're hearing more in terms of the price tags for it. Essentially, PSG would like to get 50 million for the player, when City would only want to offer 25 million. And so Fabrizio Romano is saying like probably a deal can be found somewhere in the middle, around 30-35 million, which, you know, for a player who only has a year of contract remaining, sadly, I think that's probably as good as it gets. We'll see how this gets done, but you know, we know the player already has a contract agreement in place with City, so yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. And City's goalkeeper had a huge mistake as well in their game against Tottenham this weekend. If you haven't seen the video, like just go check it out because it's kind of funny. So, you know, a panic buy of a new keeper sounds very much on the agenda for City. And finally, less funny, the story of the summer, Randall Kolo Muani to Juventus. So a couple of disagreements still, and we get more information from La Gazzetta dello Sport in Italy, who's saying there's a couple of things where the two clubs don't agree. First, we're looking at a loan with an almost like automatic buy clause. one thing would be that Juve wants that clause to be triggered by a Champions League qualification, when PSG wants something easier and just like a sporting kind of trigger. So like if the player plays X amount of games or score like Y amount of goal, he gets bought. So that's a point that's still being in conversation. And then, like, more importantly, on the money, Juve is offering a 10 million loan plus a 35 to 40 million buy clause. So the total deal could go up to 50 million, when PSG wants a total deal somewhere between 60 and 70 million. And so La Gazzetta dello Sport is saying that PSG actually ramped up their demands recently. So yeah, we'll have to see. I wouldn't be surprised to see this one go all the way to September 1st now, given where we are. The player is very keen to go to Juve, but you know, last minute interest in the UK could be interesting as well. Like just Isaac going to Liverpool, some other clubs looking at strikers, and all of a sudden, like there could be a lot more competition for the player. So we have to see. I don't see any reason to like be particularly easy on Juve for this one. Yeah, like we still have a week to go. We can always like accept a lower offer on the last day if necessary. But yeah, if they want the player for now, like they need to pay the money. And like, you know, like I told my friend Anto, you know, a few weeks ago, like, where is the money? Just give us the money. If you want the player, you just have to give the money for him. And Juve, honestly, like, I'm sorry, but they've done a lot of business this summer already. So if they wanted the player this bad, they could very well have paid for him. So they just need to sort out their management, sort out their finances. If they want the player, he's available, he's got a price to it, and yeah, like they just pay for it. That's the way it goes in the world. So yeah. Anyways, that's what I had for you today. I put back the photo of Vitinha. For Real Madrid fan, this is Vitinha with a white jersey. This is as good as you're gonna get for now. So yeah, just like look at this one and continue dreaming for the future. But yeah, for now, like, you know, please leave a like to this video. Let me know what you think on these ridiculous rumors and you know, the beautiful world of football media. And yeah, like please subscribe to the channel. Please hit the bell to get notified. Massively helps. And don't forget, ici c'est Paris.